Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz, and today I have Tiffany Nguyen with me today. I'm going to go ahead and read you her bio. Tiffany is a spiritual life coach who helps busy professionals and sensitive high achievers reconnect with their truths and live authentically. She combines practicality and spiritual wisdom to guide people towards clarity and confidence in who they are, leading them to inner peace and happiness. With her analytical brain and her intuitive tarot reading skill, Tiffany brings a unique approach to one's self transformational journey. Tiffany immigrated to the US when she was 16 and quickly learned the harsh reality of being alone in a foreign country. She faced her greatest fear, loneliness. As the years went by, she grew tired of chasing the next thing and feeling lost and decided to look within. Tiffany created the Happiness Blueprint to illustrate how people can build a fulfilling life for themselves. She holds a doctor of pharmacy and is a student of Tibetan meditation teacher Youngi Mingyur Rinpoche. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
Thanks for being here. So let's start off by sharing a little bit about how you started your journey to inner peace.
So it's quite a long journey. So I think when I first immigrated here, I became very isolated. That I didn't know the culture and I didn't know the language. Um, but most of it, my true healing would start. So those are just like the time of suffering for a long time, for like a decade, and then when I moved to Florida to pursue my doctorate degree in pharmacy, and I was engaged at that time, and one of those days after an exam, I was just lounging around to study, having a study break with my one of my best friend, and she would just make a comment, usual comment like, "Wow, I wish I had a relationship like yours." And at that moment, I was very relaxed. So I was just like, it's not that great. I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know why would you want that the kind of relationship I had. And then it's opened up a conversation from us that I basically told her that I felt not how I acted out, not how I portray. Um, we on the paper we look like very good, like a great couple, lovey-dovey, but it's quite feel quite exhausting for me. I feel like I have to always keep up with the facade. Um, and then so I actually broken down and I was like telling her, after like brushing off with, like, oh, maybe you're just having cold feet. But I actually broken down and tell her I actually think I didn't deserve any happiness. I feel like I did a lot of bad things in my life. So I was waiting for bad karma to bite me in the ass, basically. And it's just opening up about my past and when I was first moved to the US, when I was lonely and I just keep getting into a relationship one after the other, and sometimes not with people I shouldn't be with. And it was a beautiful moment where she also opened up and be vulnerable and share her own story and, very similar mistake. And it didn't take me until like few months later when I was, driving alone. It seems to be a good time to contemplate when you're driving alone, especially on long drive. Um, that I have this epiphany that if I switch place with my best friend, if she did everything I did, I would never think anything less of her, and I would never even think for even a second, never thought that she would deserve any less happiness. She would deserve the best because she's too sweet. There's nothing less. And I realized that I was too hard on myself and that was too harsh. And so that day I really forgave myself. Like that was just a mistake. It was just, like a mistake doesn't have to define who I am at the moment anymore. And we change from the past to the present to the future. We're constantly changing. So that self-forgiveness really jumpstart my healing journey. And it was like overnight, it was like a burden lifted off my shoulder. And I reassessed my life. I figured out I completely lost. I have no idea who I was anymore. I was keep working to checking out all the boxes, but I didn't really know who I was. So I broke off the engagement. I continue to finish my degree because I do love science and it's actually what I love to do. And I started that off. And that's how I start my journey. Yes.
Awesome. Let's dive into that self-compassion and forgiveness and how not only did you use it for yourself, but then how did that translate into helping your clients?
So that it wasn't until, so it's great, like when I started on my journey after I found myself, and then I stumbled upon my teacher. At the time I wanted to learn meditation, but for years it just wasn't working out. But I keep falling asleep because I'm very tired and exhausted from busy schedule and stuff like that, and I just really didn't get it. Is So after I met my teacher and learned that stuff, and another event that trigger is I was having like a big fight with my mother, and it was a big dramatic, and I was going through with my work stress at work and stuff. But during that chaotic time, I realized that I didn't feel chaotic. I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel confused or angry or upset. Like I had to do with the stress, but it didn't make me frustrated. It didn't make me angry. Um, and that is just like a piece that I didn't recognize that I had until that moment. And I realized that not everybody feel that way, and I feel like that will be a wonderful feeling for everyone to have. So that's how I set out to do my business. It just based on that wish, is to hope everybody to have their own inner peace. And throughout my work and sharing my story, self compassion is very important. We usually, when we get brought up, is always get taught to us that you need to be kind, nice to other people, and it's neglected to we never taught to be kind to ourselves. We tend to leave ourselves out of the equations, and especially for most of my clients, they are always most of them tend to be very caring, nurturing soul. Some of them are caregiver, and a lot of women, um, and even for men. But for women, we tend to be more in touch with our emotions. Um, so we just basically burn ourselves out caring for other people, and we don't have any for us left. And compassion is very important because we all make mistakes, but it's always easier to just forgive other people because we trust them more, and it's just easier because it seems like we've been doing it all the time, and is for others because we don't attach other people to our identity, and it feels great to forgive others, but for us it's not so easy. And I recognize that it was such a challenge, because I went through it myself. It took me over a decade to forgive myself, and for something that for like a mistake when I was young and stupid. But people are struggling with that, and the older we get, it seems to be it's harder to forgive ourselves because the older we get, we're supposed to be wiser and smarter than it is, but sometimes we keep repeating the same exact mistake, and it's even harder to forgive that because because uh, because apparently we didn't we didn't get smarter, we keep doing the same mistake. So so self-compassion is very important. I think if we don't truly have it for ourselves, we can't really understand it, then we can't really have it for other people. We might forgive them, but also the level of it is not very deep. So
Mhm.
that's very important.
Yeah, so true. And I like what you said earlier about driving down the road and you were thinking, I wouldn't think this about my friend, so why am I thinking this about myself? So, and reconnecting, with your authentic self and going through that forgiveness, going through that self-acceptance and inner peace. And how does being true to ourselves um, help us in our life? And then also those who are around us?
Is very important. So I think we has been, I guess, for generation, we always brought up with certain kind of set of standard and expectations. We all supposed to, study well and went out, get a good job, and be caring toward our family and have our own family and brought up. It's very set of standard how our life's supposed to go. But it's not always making us happy. And we were so busy chasing all this thing to meet the standard. Like we have to be this, we have to be that. We have so many roles that we have to play so perfectly. And in that all that pursuit, we forget the main purpose of of any life that we set out is the reason we have those kind of standard is those supposed to bring us happiness. But then we realize when we try to get all of these, and even when we check off all the box of having this, we're still not happy. We actually quite miserable because we don't know who we are. We just lost touch with who we are in the beginning. So that's why it's very important to live authentically. But sometimes because it's been so long that we've been doing what everybody else tells us to do, like what role we had to play, we forget what it is anymore. We don't even know what we want anymore. And then when we start that process, not only we have to learn compassion for ourselves and self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is also another big one, because the thing that we want not always match with other people expectations. And also the thing that we want sometimes feels like it's too much, it's too big. Who are we or how special we are to even dare to want so many things? um, just like, and then we also afraid to suddenly change or suddenly go after all that because we're afraid to appear selfish all of a sudden. We are afraid to live for ourselves. And most of that are just we're not really honest with ourselves. So even though like we know like like our life is not working out and something we want, but we're really afraid. So our fear for change and our fear for other people judging us and our fear of have to dealing with all the drama if we upset them or whatever is bigger than being honest to ourselves and staying true to us. And that created a whole mess. So furthermore, the more we go on, the more miserable we get. And over time, this is without coping mechanism. Sometimes we just get used to it. We just numb things with a lot of things, like we just busy ourselves, alcohol, you know, like happy hour, everything like that. And over time, it's like the coping mechanism. We tend to ignore it. And over time, we just don't know why we're miserable anymore. We forget the reason why. But on the bright side, if we start to live authentically, um, we so of course there's a time of adjustment when we're gonna lose some people. That's inevitable.
Mhm.
Um, but when we live authentically, we other people can see us, like we exude not like we're not going to be anxious anymore, we're not going to be frustrated, we're not going to be so irritated all the time. We're also not angry and we're not so easy to snap on other people because like we actually doing things because we choose to, because we want to. And that also when we live really honestly to ourselves, we just automatically become kinder and compassionate for other people because we're not like swallow in our misery anymore. We don't have to spend so much energy to just cope. We tend to be more open, more soft, more gentle. So it's very easier for us to be very open to see other people, to accept them, to love them in a deeper level. And the beautiful thing is when we actually live very honestly with ourselves, is give people space and give people that comfort level, and that just something about us that give them space to actually be honest themselves. So yeah, like we are so comfortable and honest with ourselves that we let other people be vulnerable and be true to who they are too. So we're helping everybody just by being true to ourselves.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more. And it's so true, especially for women. And I know men experience this as well, but
Mhm.
kind of putting ourselves on that shelf, forgetting about our needs and wants and our desires in the world and really focusing on other, or focusing on what our parents want for us or our partner or our children,
Yeah.
and not focusing on our own happiness. And coming out of it, I know I did not knowing who I was or what I wanted or what my desires were, because I was so used to focusing on everybody else. So I think a lot of our listeners are going to relate to this. How did your Buddhist philosophy and practice play into, this growth process for you?
Is very important. So mindfulness is a big part. And so that's when I first learned about teacher is mostly first about meditation. Did not get anything deep into Buddhism. But afterward, Buddhist principle, most of them are encouraging for questions, regardless of how critical or how silly my question is. It's very encouraging. And their principle, I guess it depends on what school you go to and stuff like that, because Buddhism has a lot of different schools. But the thing that I incorporate most in my work are two things: mindfulness and the four component of true love, um, which is almost like a milestone mark, to check, just a guideline to check our relationship, to see, to keep in check, because sometimes our emotions are very confusing and it's easy to be deceived by our emotion. Like, how often do we have a wrong first impression about someone and then we completely change our mind about someone when we understand, the situation and where they're coming from. So with those principles, is like it's almost like a guide with relationship, because relationship, we are all emotional beings, so we tend to, we tend to lose ourselves very easily in a relationship. um, so with the four component of true love is helpful to remind myself that, and also with, also have to go together with the mindfulness practice, but is remind myself that, okay, am I loving that person for who they are? Or am I loving that person for just my image, my idea of who they are? So those principles, that specific one, really help to keep reminding myself. So first of all, that will take off the pressure of the other person. They don't have to strive. They don't have to try to fit into the role or whatever my idea of them are, and help me to keep an open mind to not to assume and just look at them and see them for who they are and love them for who they are, and not trying to change them or anything. And regardless of where that relationship leads, whether it's, getting deeper or we go a separate way or whatever, it's just a good idea to avoid a lot of drama. And a lot of it is not about, it's not about me as a person, but it just, relationship, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And but it's just like a good guideline and reminder into like explaining things. So those things are specifically what I bring into my work. So which, it doesn't have anything to do with, like, you don't have to really know what is Buddhism or whatever, but those principles to help to guide us, to remind us to how to view the world and view other people, and to make our behavior more ethical, more kinder, more compassionate, and just more wholesome, make our relationship deeper and more wholesome.
Nice. And how do you use the meditation and mindfulness in your practice? And how does that benefit your clients?
So I basically encourage, and that actually their homework assignment to actually have a mindfulness practice. So they do have to be mindful. Mindfulness practice is just be aware. So like to be aware, like so they practice with me. If they never meditate before, it's fine. In my own personal practice, is different from how I work with most people, because I study, so I'm already in my study track. So my personal practice is different. But For other clients, most of the time I just, so I do teach them a little bit of meditation for someone that never meditated before. Is the main idea just to be aware. So usually I teach them about breathing, to be aware of the breath. And that to help them to focus on, be more aware of how they're reacting or what's going on, and have a little bit of distinction between like everything is going on around them is about them, or to take a breather basically. And so it's good to try to start build up that mindfulness practice, but that's very important because in the long run, awareness is like always a big major step. It's like once they recognize that is an issue or there's a problem, or once they catch themselves with the behavior, that's awareness. So they need that level of awareness, and it's key, need to be maintained. So yeah, that's very important for long run.
Nice. Awareness is very important. Yeah, without awareness, nothing can change. I say that repeatedly.
Exactly.
Yes,
If we
it's
don't
true,
know, if we
true.
don't recognize a problem, then we don't even see a problem to solve it. So
Exactly. So how did your happiness blueprint come about? And can you tell us what that is?
yeah, so the happiness blueprint is just more like what make a life very fulfilling, or and I make it like general enough. So basically there's like our life is built on certain kind of for me when I did the blueprint, it's like certain circle, and it's like a pillar for our life. So the first one is basically our basic need. People are not gonna think about clarity or happiness when they're starving, so they need to have their basic need met. So it, I'm a very I do not accept anyone that have to take out a debt to work with me, because that's not, for me, that's not ethical for me. I want them to have the basic need met, so they don't have to be stressed out and thinking about what to put on the table for tomorrow. That's unacceptable. They just don't have the energy and the mind space to actually think about anything else if they're struggling for survival. So we all need that basic need met, so we can have that level of safety and security, so we can actually grow. Otherwise, we're just surviving. So that's the first pillar, that they need some kind of safety and security. So of course, it's not like you need a mansion to survive, like you need your basic bills, like electricity, rent, like food, shelter, like basic needs. And then the next one that people need will be passion, purpose. More is the similar and almost the same. It's like you have. It's, it's not always mean that you need to, your job need to be your purpose or your passion for life or whatever. It's just that you have something in your life that bring you meaning and it bring you joy. It doesn't have to be the same thing, but it's necessary to have them. It could be hobby, it could be charity work that you're involved in, or it could be anything. It could be an interest as you're learning. But as human, we need that kind of that intellect, that's kind of more, that kind of purpose and more. We're not just here to just maybe pay bills and die. And so the meaning and purpose is important. And the next big one is relationship. We are not made to just survive on ourselves. So in our whole life, we always have to have relationship with other people. So it's important to have to build like at least one that we can be vulnerable with, we can be safe with, to be very supportive with. So like if you just have like coworker, that acquaintance, that's fine, but we need that intimate connection, either with a mentor or a best friend or children or parents or spouse. Like we need at least one relationship that's very deep connection, that they actually know who we are or our weaknesses and stuff like that. So because we are connected, if we feel so disconnected and isolated, we tend to get depressed. It's just depression is mostly the symptom when we feel so disconnected. um, and then the main one, the biggest one, is ourself. And that's the one that drive everything else. Because ourselves, we from the moments we were born, we get shaped with all these ideas and beliefs in cultural society. Um, so without unknowingly, we develop this belief and our view of how the world is supposed to work or how my life is supposed to be. And we use that kind of belief to judge everything else. And we base our action based on those judgments, and those judgments based on our belief that might or might not necessarily be true. Um, so if we change our perception, if our perception is skewed or distorted or even toxic, if we be able to change it, then we are changing our life from the inside out. Because if we change the way we look at things, we have different judgment about them, and we will act differently. We feel differently when we realize something differently. So that's the biggest piece is about ourselves. But often we just tend to, checking off materialistic, get some purpose, get some, do something we like, and then get some relationship, but we neglecting that big chunk. The center of it all is ourselves.
Awesome. That's great, Tiffany. What a great program. How do people find the right spiritual mentor or teacher?
So they're um, first of all, they would have to find someone that is genuine, authentic, and I guess sometimes it needs time for them to recognize that. But one of the big key one is resonance. They have to resonate with that mentor or teacher. Is very similar with like when we go to school, we have many teacher. Like we can have many math teacher, but maybe the one that we just kind of understand more, one that we like or something like that. So there's something about their style that really resonate with it and helpful for us to make us understand things. Because all the math teachers teaching the same math doesn't change, but there's something about a particular one that we like, that we will be able to understand it. And so resonance and honesty is a big two key point to find their mentor and teacher. Um, so resonant, and people have to be, once they find a teacher, they need to be open and receptive. Um, it's hard to, if you like, it would be a terrible disaster if I go to my teacher and I was telling him how to do things, or how am I right, how right I am, and he just needs to approve it. That's not the point. They have to be receptive and open, and even be ready to have the whole worldview come crashing down. Um, but I think one of the phrase that's very fitting in life is from Lao Tzu, is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. You know, um, I read like many spiritual books for a long time, like for those, even when I was suffering, like Eckhart Tolle, Dalai Lama, and it was dry for me. I fell asleep. I didn't quite get it. But until I met my teacher, then I can understand this book. But from all of that, before then, I don't get it. Like before then, when I was lost, I read those spiritual texts, and I would just go straight to sleep. Did not get it.
That's great.
Yeah, but afterward, then okay, no, yeah, now I get it.
Nice. If someone resonates with you as a spiritual coach and teacher, what are the components of their journey for their personal transformation?
So the way I work, I looking at patterns and I pointed them out for them. Because when we are confused, uh, most of the coach will let them come to their own answer. I'm quite different. I'm more of like a mentor teacher one, that I will point it out for them. I give you the answer, and I just hope you contemplate on it and give me back question when you confused on that point. Because I find that if we already confused a lot, there's no way you're gonna find there's no way you're gonna find the map, the roadmap. So the way I work is when people come to me, we're gonna go through relationship first. We're gonna dive into relationship patterns, starting with your most intimate one, which is romance. and then is spreading out to family relationship patterns, which will uncover a lot of generational wounds, because we tend to repeat either our parents' mistake or patterns. It tend to repeat in the family, and then it's like peeling back the layers, and then we go deeper into ourselves and who we are and how we look at ourselves. I find that it's best to go that way because with relationship, it's inevitable that we're gonna show many sides of us in relationship, and it's easier to have our behavior and to pick up our behavior and then to, I guess, do like reverse analysis and point it back to why we do this, like why we act that way in the relationship. And then so it's easier point to be opening up to start seeing evidence, I guess. So it's easier, and then to go and then like digging deeper. So it's like a go like a spiral, like first relationship, then go a spiral to us, so go to ourselves. So that's how I work.
Nice. So how do we, like when we're working through those relationships, let's dive into belief systems and thought forms and how you use those to lift up your clients.
So the way I work is I will go through for example, like my client would tell me about, so of course I have to be open and ready to share because we have to share all that intimate, detailed stuff. Um, so I hold like a safe space for them, and they would tell me their relationship, what happened in it, whether they broken up or not, and like just telling me like their behavior in it, their feelings, and so I will point it out to them. Like that's one of my strengths, that I can just spot the patterns. I will be like, yeah, you had this thought patterns in your relationship. And then we dive into the history of dating. Like, okay, so you've been attracting this type of person. There may be a pattern of the reason why that you keep attracting the same thing. But what you actually want is a little bit different. But you're looking for like maybe the superficial thing of it, or sometimes we're looking for the wrong thing of what we actually really want. And it's just sad, but we all do it. We all do it. We all do it. We're like, I will be like, for example, I will like, well, I really want like a sensitive, honest person, but I will be looking for someone. Yeah, I will be looking for someone honest, and they might be sensitive, but we might have like a conversation, and that would be it. They're like, oh, well, I guess like honest, so I guess that check mark. But what I really want is someone that I can talk to a very long time. But so it's different. But we tend to not get what we actually want. We want a wrong thing. So that's how I point out the pattern, and it's just going. And then I will tell them like teaching moment a lot about what relationship require, like a good quality, like relationship require like several quality to make it harmonious and very long term. And without those things, it's like without those foundation, it's not gonna last. It's just not gonna work out. And this can be built. It's not like everybody born to be in a relationship. It's think it's great when I met with some of my colleagues and clients. Like it's very good to get this kind of work early on in the relationship, so we both be whole and we both know how to be in a relationship. We never get taught how to be in a relationship, so we just stumble into a relationship one after the other, and we do it blind, and we're repeating the same thing. But once we learn how to be in a relationship, is make the relationship healthier, and it's just better when we learn it. So that's how usually it works. So I will ask something very intimate detail, and I would just tell them the pattern, and then I will give them homework to change the type of framework, and then to start practicing mindfulness.
Nice. I like that. You're direct. And sometimes we
Very
need that
direct.
directness.
Very direct. I will be like brutally blunt. So like I will be like, I was like, some of my client was telling me the story like, wow, that sucks. But it's not really like a bad intent. So I think it just depends on the style. Like I do not sugarcoat. I would be like, yeah, well, that sounds pretty abusive to me, kind of thing. So like very straightforward. Um, but I think it just depends on people's style. It just depends on people's style and personality. I'm very straightforward and I point it straight out for them. So so people will not. So for me is so they don't misunderstand.
Right.
So it's clear, so they can take it and do whatever they want with it, and they can come back to it or something. But that is the level of resonance. You know, you need to resonate the style with the teacher or mentor, and also the level of us, how receptive we are, how open and ready we are. If we're not willing to change, if we're not willing to be wrong, then we stay here, we stay stuck.
Yeah,
With
it's true. Hmm. What are some of the common belief systems that you run into in your practice?
the very most common one is we are most of us are people pleaser. Even when we very um, even when we very like develop, like it can manifest in different way how our personality manifests. We can become like very aloof, like, oh, I don't care. Or somehow like we become like bitter. It's like, oh, life sucks, like this is the bitch. Like we just hate everybody else or just hate life, how it works, and it's just miserable. And sometimes it's like more soft. Like sometimes people withdraw and close down, so they get very depressed, and they would just like um, they would just shut down basically. And some people would just be like completely lost their power or their own authority. They will be like, I do whatever you want. I don't know what anymore. I'm just like whatever you tell me to do, I will do. So it's manifests a lot of those, but all of that come down to we kind of like people pleaser. Um, we don't have confidence. We don't have confidence in ourselves, and that's very tricky, especially because a lot of my clients are high achiever. We might be very successful in our career, so we have confidence in our talent or what we can do in our work, but we don't have confidence in ourselves in relationship or like it's like so like it's like a very simple question, like, do you think you deserve I don't know. So for women, like, do you think you deserve Mr. Darcy? And they were like, well, that would be nice, but that's fictional. I don't know if that's realistic, you kind of thing. So like, that's like a sign of a confidence. I'm like, so you don't think you're good enough for a Mr. Darcy, basically. So lack of confidence, people pleaser, self-esteem, low self-worth, and that is very common in both women and men. It also confident, but both low self-esteem, body image, a lot of shame. We have a lot of fear and a lot of shame. So those are very, very most common with everyone.
Nice.
Even I went through it, so
Mhm.
it's very common.
Yeah, very common. And how do you work with your clients around their fear and shame? Because that's huge.
So healing is a spiral journey. I hold quiet space for them. And so they can most people all of my clients feel safe to be vulnerable because I want to be vulnerable again and share things. The feeling of shame, um, unfortunately, a lot of them arise from how we were brought up. Sometimes it's like a generational wound, it's passing down from generations, and sometimes it's come from trauma, childhood trauma, like a younger time trauma. So either events or how the way we get brought up, and it would keep repeating that the feeling of shame run very very deep. um, the way I transform is I point it out for them how that shame form, and it just needs time and their willingness to do the deeper work and just to dig deep through it. Um, look, it take very long. It take them decades to form that kind of shame. So it's gonna take some time to undo a lot of knot. And sometimes we get triggered, and sometimes we come back. Sometimes we thought we were healed and we complete, we good. But then maybe 3 years later, like something trigger us. I'm like, oh my God, like, like a deeper level.
Yeah.
But it's good because once we get triggered, we understand like, okay, this is like a deeper wound that we go deeper and we can heal. And but it's good. So like the basic of it, like I pointed out the pattern how that shame from it's forming or was formed, and how it keeps perpetuated and showing up in their life. And it's like is that's a beautiful thing about our human mind. Once we see it, we're not lost anymore. It's just like when we in the river. If we are drowning in the river, then we cannot see anything. But when we're outside of it, even the river will be like the current will be very strong and like very like wide river crashing down or whatever. But we're not drowning. We can see things, then we can flip it.
Awesome. And how do we use those life events, those big changes in our lives, that suffering or breakup or loss of a job to propel us forward? You talk about that on your website, that you using it as a jumping off point for personal growth. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think those are really opportunity for us to look at ourselves. Usually when things all go smoothly, our coping mechanism like very strong. We just don't notice what's wrong with it. Like, or we kind of feel what's wrong with it, but we just bury it. We just suppress it. I'm like, okay, it's fine. Everything is fine. I don't want to open a can of worm kind of thing. So we're just going through this. But when those kind of life event happens, it forces it forces to be honest with ourselves. Like, shit, nothing has been working. I've been avoiding this. So for me, it was like I was in the down for a very long time, and I would just like suppress and just like keep moving on. But for me, a little bit different because I was lucky. I didn't have like something like crashing down, boom, something like that. But for most of people, either like a breakup or divorce, is like break them open. Um, and the beautiful thing about those kind of suffering is we honest, because we are tend to be more honest when we are grieving. And whenever something happens, even when breakup or divorce, even if we're the one that initiated, it's still a very difficult emotional event to go through, and we're still grieving for something that we used to have and now we lose it. And that grief make us open and make us honest. And it is exactly that vulnerability that can help us see the truth of us, can help us open our eyes and recognize that's what not working, and propel us to go deeper. If we never get triggered, then we're just cruising along and continue with our coping mechanism, and we just continue to be miserable at the end. So it's better to like, it's just like when you break up, it's better if you process it and get on with, and later on when you heal, you can be in like a healthy, harmonious relationship later on, than after a breakup and we're just like drowning the pain with alcohol or drug or whatever, and then let's get on rebound relationship and then just keep get on the train. It just keep getting worse basically. So it's an opportunity for us to take whatever we decide. If we decide to continue on with what we've been doing, or we decide to stop and look deeper and transform our life on that one. So it's opportunity.
It really is. It's definitely a catalyst point, a jumping off point for, a new beginning for sure.
Yeah.
How do you use your tarot readings in your
Yeah.
work?
I am intuitive tarot reader, and so during my work, I uncover, because I work with patterns. So it's come up with patterns a lot. So most of the time, you just use my analytical brain, but then toward the end, if people are open for it, some people don't like tarot, then it's fine. It doesn't have to be incorporated, but um, in Buddhism, we do believe in past life. So it's just, for fun pouring. I was just telling them, like, hey, sometimes, like, it's like more like a curiosity point. Like if sometimes we feel like we in this life and we experience like a lot of like, because patterns, so we keep repeating like same pattern, like why am I here for these love challenges or for these financial challenges? So like so that is toward the end. I think it was my last session, like ending session or something. So I do a tarot reading on karmic pattern and looking at their past life just out of a curiosity. So like, oh, so this is your soul journey and your soul pattern. So like it's like we sign up to get into this life to learn certain kind of big lessons and how are we progressing, are we doing, make good progress on some of these lives? Or are we going backward? Or like, oh fuck. So kind of that. So it's a good curiosity point. And some people find that helpful. Some people find that very hopeful. Some people it's like a good checkup, like, oh no, like oh no, we're progressing backward. Let me go forward. But it's very lighthearted. Interesting just to see the pattern. So that's how I use for that one. And that's how I use for tarot reading most of the time. I think very few private clients will ask me for like a tarot reading, more like mundane life, like when I'm gonna meet someone or life changing thing like that. I sometimes indulge in it, but it's not very empowering for you because you change your life. You can choose whatever you want. So it doesn't really matter that you can have that reading and then you decide to do completely thing different. So like whatever. But yeah, that's where I use tarot reading in. Like I naturally intuitive a little. So I might have used it in coaching or mentoring unknowingly without a method that I'm not aware of. So my level of awareness is not that high yet. But for actually using a tarot card, it's only during my last session when I look at karmic pattern from their past life to see how their soul lesson and progressing on their learning curve.
Awesome. It's nice to bring that in, and it's good to always incorporate the intuitive aspect of it too. I love a good tarot reading. It offers another perspective. It's good.
Yeah, another perspective. Like, wow, I signed up to learn this one. So I signed up for we all signed up for hard lesson. We never signed up for easy lesson. It's a hard lesson.
We never learn anything, right? If it was easy.
Yes, that's right. Because we always remember the test that we failed. We don't remember the test that we just ace.
Right? So true. Gosh. How else can people work with you, Tiffany?
So people can book a call, either send me email or just book a 15-minute discovery call to see if our vibe match, to see if they like my style and how I work. I do curse in my language, which is come out, and I'm very blunt. So it just if they like my energy, like my style, and resonate, then yeah, that would be good working with. But if not a good match, then I will, invite them to continue looking for the mentor.
Awesome. And what do you offer?
Yes, I offer 12 weeks one-on-one mentoring with me. And so that's where I go through and pointed out their pattern from relationship to their whole view about themselves and about life, how their word form, how they view their form of the view, and to shift it. Because once I pointed out, obviously we can see like, okay, that doesn't make sense. They're like, yes, it doesn't. So we can change our patterns, we can change our life. And then most of my clients, they go forward with confidence in themselves. And that naturally develop that resilience because no matter whatever obstacle arise, because life always up and down and something gonna throw our way, a curveball. But yeah, so they have resilience that when obstacle come up, they not feeling lost, they not feeling confused. They know who they are, they know their value, and they know what they want, and so they can make a decision. And that's the resilience to go forward, and that gives them true confidence. Confidence is not like you're gonna be successful, but it's more like that you can handle it and that you can go forward no matter what happened in the future. It's not that ahead of time what's going on. And then so most people going on and they change their life, and most of them will have much healthier relationship. Yeah, one of my clients actually met his true love after divorce. So that was great. Yeah, it set apart. Once you kind of once we know who we are and when we can love ourselves is so much wholesome. It's so much more holistic. It's just so much. I think it's just so much better. We're able to love other people completely as they are, and so that opened the door to love. Once we're ready, then hey.
Yes, I love that. And how can people find you?
Yes, they can come to my website, spunkyspiritualist.com, and there's a book a call button, or they can send me an email at tiffany@spunkyspiritualist.com.
Nice. And are you on social media?
I am only on Facebook. I'm not on any other social media.
Okay. And are you on Facebook at Spunky Spiritualist?
Yes, yeah, that's my
Awesome.
page also. Yes.
Great. And what would you like to leave our listeners with today?
I want to leave everyone listening to be honest with ourselves. We're never gonna be able to run away from who we are. So this is what we get until the day we die. So it's best to be honest with ourselves. And the best advice that I can give other people is to become your own best friend. If we know more about our best friend than ourselves, then just start become our best friend. So start learning about ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. It was awesome having you today. What a great conversation.
Thank you, Liz.
And thank you for joining me, everybody. Go find Tiffany at spunkyspiritualist.com and on Facebook at Spunky Spiritualist. And find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Raise the Vibe with Liz and my website, Liz's Healing Touch. Have a great day, everybody. And remember to get that out there and raise the vibe. Bye, everyone. Bye, Tiffany. Thank you.
Hi, thank you.